Hey guys, today we're taking a look at my mill deck, also known as a deck that just tries to deck out your opponent. These can be very annoying to deal with. It's kind of similar to burn decks. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this type of deck, but again, I try to make all kinds of decks, so this is my mill deck. I already have a mill deck and I've updated it to, I guess, the new ban list, but I also changed a lot of stuff around, so I'm going to go through the cards and kind of how it works. So Swift Scarecrow, obviously, in a deck like this, very useful to stall and keep yourself from getting direct attacked after you're using all your effects. Needleworm, a must in this type of deck, milling your opponent very easily. Worm, kind of the weaker version of Needleworm, although the good thing about it is it doesn't have to be flipped for it to work, and can be useful in combination with other cards. And then we have Tsukuyomi, so it's a spirit monster, so it goes back to your hand after you normal summon it. The big thing about it is if it gets normal summoned or flip face up, you can change one of your opponents, you can change one of your monsters and put it into face down defense position. Very important for reusing your flip effects, so if you could bait your opponent to attacking this, or you could just normal summon while you're stalling your opponent and you still have a monster out, can be very useful, very annoying, and also the fact that you'll keep getting this monster back to reuse it if you need to. Cardi, draw power, very important in this deck. Obviously with Swift Scarecrow and some of the other cards you have, not a big deal to use your summon on this guy for some extra draw power. Morphing Jar number 2, very good for this deck, messing with their entire field, getting rid of their synchros and their XYZs and all that, and also going kind of through their deck and messing with their cards, very annoying. Destiny Hero Defender, so good stall card, also helping you mill by, drawing, basically, helping your opponent kind of go through their deck very easily. Morphing Jar number 1, obviously one of the best cards for this type of deck, and being able to reuse his effect will make this deck work so well. So for the spell cards, Messenger of Peace, a really good stall card. Obviously you'll be wanting to use this a lot. Book of Eclipse, another amazing card for mill deck, basically allowing you to reuse flip effects, making your opponent draw, stalling your opponent. Just a really great card, and that's why you run 3 in this deck. Shallow Grave, also really good card for this deck, allowing you to reuse your flip effects by resummoning your flip effect monsters. Gravekeeper's Servant, very annoying card to deal with. Once it starts to get your opponent down to a much lower card count, they're going to have a lot of trouble dealing with this card. And when you have like 2 continuous spell cards that are really annoying your opponent, they're going to have to deal with both of them and kind of choose which one they're going to have to deal with. And then Book of Teo, allowing you to kind of activate your flip effects really quickly to use in combination with other cards. This can save you, and it can also help you reactivate flip effects, so it's situational. I find it to be very useful for this deck, though. Cup of Ace, it's a great card in this deck because if you're drawing cards or your opponent's drawing cards, you win either way. It still helps you. Pot of Duality, not that much special summoning in this deck, a little bit, so Pot of Duality can be a choice. I still think it's very important for getting the card you need at the specific moment. One Day of Peace, obviously a really good card for this deck. If it wasn't limited, it would be very insane for this deck. But obviously you're able to use one, so you use it. Again, Book of Moon, good in most decks, but in this deck particularly, it's very good, allowing you to reuse flip effects again, and allowing you to stall and stuff like that. So just a useful card no matter what's going on. Dark Hole, even in this type of deck, it's very good to clear the monsters on the field, and it can also destroy worms, so that can be useful, to activate its effect. And then Soul Reversal, just one of these, enabling you to get Needleworm back to your deck. Really good because it's a quick spell, so you can make it on your draw phase, you're going to get that card. And also in combination with the other cards like Pot of Duality and Morphing Jar, you can kind of ensure yourself that you're getting the card that you want. And then Torrential Tribute, just like Dark Hole, to help you out. You can run more traps if you want, but it's kind of hard in a mill deck to run a lot of those normal cards. So for the extra deck, not much to say, just a lot of 2, 3, and 4 stars that you're not going to see very often. Just ones very encased, because you're able to reuse a lot of your cards, so you really don't want to XYZ them. If you are going to XYZ them, you have 2 stars, Herald of Pure Light for getting the cards you need back, Gotchi for stalling. For 3 stars, Alucard is really good to defend your flip effect monsters, so you can kind of reuse their flip effects. And a bunch of other normal 3 stars. Leviar in case your cards get banished, Zenmaines obviously. For 4 stars, a bunch of typical ones, Crazy Box to stall, Utopia to stall, Black Ship, Diamond Direwolf, a lot of ones that have effects just to annoy your opponent. Lavalo Chain, very nice for setting up what you need, and Daigusto Emerald also very nice for kind of reusing the cards that are very important to you in this deck. So for the side deck, again, side decks in my videos are just recommended cards that when you're building your own deck, you can kind of look at and maybe, use them to make your deck. It's not necessarily a side deck for matches. So I kind of wanted to put two cards in here that showed like the alternative build types. One of them is Soul Absorbing Bone Tower. So this one lets you kind of focus on a mill deck with zombies. So I might make one day, and if you are going to make one, this card is kind of the star of that deck, allowing you to mill when you special summon zombies. Iron Chain Snake is another kind of variation. If you run Iron Chain, you can use cards like this and kind of the support cards to really mess with your opponent. AD Changer is another alternative for this deck, allowing you to kind of defend yourself or activate flip effects quickly. Chainsaw Insect, kind of like an alternative to Defender. It's the more offensive type. There's some offensive milling cards, so those are some of the cards I'm going to be going through, and this is one of them. Another one was Kuraz the Light Monarch. Really messing with your opponent, destroying cards, and then making your opponent mill. Well, not mill, but draw. Kind of the same thing in this deck, but very useful. Sasuke Samurai, another one of the offensive cards. So if you can get your opponent down really low and use this card and do battle damage, they're going to be drawing a lot of cards, so it's going to be very annoying for them to deal with it. Danzalug, obviously the Dark Scorpions have a lot of milling, and Danzalug's probably the best one you're going to want to use if you're going to focus on a milling deck. And then Drag Down into the Grave, obviously a card that's used in a bunch of different deck types. Very useful for this card, or very useful for this deck because it gives you some draw power and discarding at the same time and works really well. Can also work with a bunch of other cards. MST, obviously, to get rid of... There's some other traps that can actually be very useful. I haven't gone through all of them, but there's a bunch of them. Desert Sunlight, to one, basically get rid of one of your monster and then your opponent has to mill. Can be useful in combination with Worm Worm. Wabaku, cards like that, Thunder of Ruler, cards to stall can be useful. Gift of Greed, another card that just helps your opponent kind of go through their deck. And Dark Bribe, just kind of infinitely usable in this deck because them drawing cards is what you want to happen, so it can be useful. There's a bunch more cards I probably haven't gone over. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this deck type, a lot of other alternatives. So if you guys, also if you want to contact me, all my contact stuff is in the description. If you want to follow me on Twitter, talk to me, tweet me, ask me questions, duel me, anything like that. All my contact stuff is in there. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you